Good morning, all. I'll be presenting the morbidity and mortality stats from Department of Interventional Radiology for the month of January to 31st of March. Myself, Dr. Karamveer Chandel from Interventional Radiology Department. So, coming to procedures, we did 20 TEPs, 63 TACE, 4 PARTOs, 23 angioplasty and stentings, 13 embolization for various indications, 98 PTBDs, 5 fistula dilatations, ablations in form radio frequency ablation 1 case and microwave ablation 42 cases, 18 permacath placements, 680 aspiration procedures including catheter placement and single time aspirations, 17 PICC line insertions, 75 FNACs and 134 biopsies. In this period, we report no mortality, however, 2 morbidities, which I'll be discussing. So this is a 47-year-old gentleman. He presented to HVB surgery department with initial presentation of gradual progressive jaundice for 2 months. It was obstructive in nature with serum bilirubin of 21.92. Rest of his liver enzymes were mildly elevated, and rest of the investigations were within limits. On evaluation of outside MRI and CT, he's got his imaging done from outside. On evaluation of the imaging and ultrasound, bilobar intrahepatic biliary radical dilatation was noted with ill-defined enhancing mass lesion involving the hilum, with separation of the right and left ductal system, suggestive of type 2 malignant block, likely probably secondary to hilar cholangiocarcinoma. It was planned for PTBD, which was performed on the next day. During procedure was uneventful, and 8 French catheter was placed in the left ductal system with tip near the confluence. But in the immediate perihepatic in the immediate post-procedure period, patient mild perihepatic fluid was noted. Mild perihepatic fluid maybe present, but this time the fluid was echogenic, which was likely suggestive of post-procedure bleeding. Patient had mild tachycardia, however, his blood pressure, respiratory rate, and oxygen saturations were normal. So in the immediate post-procedure period with echogenic perihepatic fluid, triphasic CCT was done, and this CT was suggestive of perihepatic hematoma and negative contrast extravasation. So these are the non-contrast axial images, which shows perihepatic hyperdense fluid. And on the arterial phase images, we can see that there is a small amount of active contrast extravasation noted in the perihepatic region, and our catheter was closely abutting the arterial, the segment 3 arterial branches. We cannot see intraparenchymal hematoma or any intraparenchymal active contrast extravasation. On the venous phase images, we could see that this perihepatic active contrast extravasation increased in size. The system, catheter was in the left ductal system, and the left ductal system was decompressed. On the MIP reconstructed images, we can see the catheter in the left ductal system closely abutting the segment 3 arterial branches, and probably there was no intraparenchymal hematoma or any active contrast extravasation, though contrast must have been seeping along the catheter into the perihepatic region. In view of that, the patient was immediately taken for angioembolization, and this is the initial run from the celiac artery. The selective run of the segment 2 and 3 artery was done, and segment 3 artery was selectively cannulated, and coil embolization was done. On check angiogram, segment 2 artery shows no opacification, whereas segment 2 artery is normally opacified. So patient was shifted to surgical ICU, and in the meantime, patient had developed mild tachycardia and mild decrease in blood pressure, for which he was started on low dose inotropes, noradrenaline at 2 ml. And he was observed there for 1 day, and he improved overnight. There was no further decrease in HB, and patient vitals improved. He was stable and was shifted to ward thereafter. Patient thereafter in the hospital course had undergone right PTBD and right portal vein embolization, and is been looked for right hepatectomy. So coming to discussion for the here, the hepatic artery injuries are infrequent but serious complication that can be seen after percutaneous biliary procedures. The incidence is in the range of 1.3 to 8%, and they may manifest as hemobilia, hemoperitoneum, or subcapsular hemorrhage. The quality improvement guidelines for PTBD, which were published in 2010, indicates a 2.5% average rate of hemorrhage and suggested an acceptable threshold rate of about 5%. More than that, we need to look into our technique. There are various risk factors that have been that are there, which increase the chances of hepatic artery injury. First is PTBD placement in a non-dilated system, which with a hazard ratio of reported hazard ratio of about 5.71 when compared to a dilated system. Use of large bore needles 18G. In non-dilated system, we prefer using a 21G needle. Left side PTBD are always at a risk of higher injuries to hepatic arteries. because the artery is usually anterior in this region, and reported hazard ratio about 2.017 when compared to the right sided PTBTs, and central punctures have an increased risk of hepatic injury. So whenever we suspect a bleeding from a biliary drain and there is blunt tinged bile, we need not worry, and it usually settles in 24 to 48 hours. However, when frank blood is there in the PTBD catheter, draining catheter, or in the collecting bag, we need to assess the hemodynamic status of the patient. If the patient is hemodynamically stable, we need to do a check cholangiogram or tractogram, and probably if it comes out to be venous lead, then we need to upgrade the drain by about 2 French. Position the tube carefully with making sure that the proximal hole is not in the parenchymal tract. We should cap the tube for the next 24 to 48 and wait for it. If the bleeding continues, he goes into this algorithm, part of the algorithm, where we need to start resuscitation blood transfusion if required. Selective angiogram of the hepatic vessel should be done, and preferably without the drain in situ, and plus minus embolization if we find something on the DSA. So coming to our next case, he's a 78-year-old gentleman with initial presentation of hematuria and left flank pain for 2 months. On evaluation of outside CT, there was a hypervascular mass lesion noted in the right kidney with hypervascular solitary liver lesion, which was suggestive of probably RCC with hepatic metastasis. He was planned for liver soil biopsy. His initial HP was 8, and the rest of the investigations were normal. He was taken for a liver biopsy the next day. In this patient, during the procedure only, we can see this is on ultrasound. This hypoechoic region is the mass lesion which was biopsied, and this is the capsule of the liver. This was the track we biopsy. During the procedure only, we saw this echogenic perihepatic fluid was noted along the track. And immediately there was fluid in the perihepatic region, which was also echogenic, and in the subhepatic region, and in the pelvis too. Patient developed tachycardia. So this was suggestive of active bleeding, and it was very fast. So we didn't have time, so we immediately took the patient for angioembolization in view of large amount of bleeding. Patient initial run was taken from he has a replaced right hepatic artery from the SMA, and his initial run showed these tumoral vessels, and the selective run showed this hypervascular tumor in the right lobe of the liver. And this was embolized selectively by using gel foam. Post gel foam embolization run shows non-opacification of the tumoral vessels, and after this, the patient was shifted to HDU, was managed there. His hemoglobin had dropped to 4.5. Blood products were given over the next 5 days and was managed accordingly there. His hemoglobin improved to 8.3. Patient was stable and was discharged after 5 days. So the point of discussion here is that significant bleeding after liver mass biopsy, the reported incidence is about 0.4 to 0.6%, and it may require transfusion or angiographic intervention. Mortality reported is about 0.05%. There are various risk factors that have been postulated, like some of them are the number of passes, more than 4, platelet count less than 50,000. If we use a coaxial technique, because the coaxial needle stays in for a longer period of time, there's a chance of capsular tear because of that. Any subcapsular lesion or hypervascular lesion has an increased chance of bleeding. Ours was a subcapsular lesion. It was subcapsular in location and was hypervascular. So we should be vigilant during the percutaneous hepatic procedures as well as in the immediate post-procedure period. First case was in the immediate post-procedure period, and the second case was during the procedure we picked up bleed. Vascular complication, although rare, but may be fatal if not recognized early. And we should do early CCT, multiphasic, should be in case of expected bleeding, and we should proceed accordingly. And the patient may be directly taken for angiography, as in our second case, where it shows a large amount of bleed in the procedural period, or shows his vitals are reflecting a large amount of bleeding. Thank you.
Interesting. But what do you think went wrong in your case?
Sir, in the first case, during procedure, we may injure bleeding at time. And as I discussed, the expected threshold.
What do you think went wrong? It's a learning lesson. No fault point. What do you think went wrong?
Sir, as I discussed that The left-sided systems are difficult to do, left PTBDs. The artery, we may have injured any artery during the procedure on the left side. We should be more vigilant while doing the procedure, but inadvertent puncture of artery may happen because small arteries, we're not able to see them on ultrasound at times. This may happen. The learning point from this was that the immediate post-procedure period for the patient is important. And most of the injuries happen, most of the bleed are picked up during the first 2 hours of the post-procedure, in the post-procedure period. We need to be vigilant. We need to observe the patient and look for, do ultrasound screening on regular intervals and have a check on his vitals. And if at all they are indicative of any kind of bleeding, we need to intervene at that point only.